August 12, 1121, the Didgori Plain, Kingdom of Georgia. A wave of armored cavalry stretches across the horizon, 250,000 men. Seljuk Turks, seasoned warriors who have crushed armies from Anatolia to Persia. Their banners ripple in the morning wind. The thunder of hooves shakes the earth. Sultan Mahmud II rides at their center, surrounded by elite Mamluks whose curved sabers have tasted the blood of 100 battles. They march toward Tbilisi with absolute certainty. Georgia will kneel. The Georgian king will flee. This campaign will end before autumn. Then the forest erupts. From elevated positions in visible moments before, 40,000 Georgians strike. Not a desperate charge, a calculated symphony of violence. Within hours, the greatest army in the Islamic world shatters completely. Bodies pile so high they dam the streams. The survivors flee in terror, abandoning wealth, weapons, honor. This was the Battle of Didgori. But before understanding how 40,000 defeated 250,000, one question must be answered first. What happens when a people decide that survival matters more than the rules of conventional warfare? The Kingdom of Georgia sits at the crossroads of empires. To the east, Persia. To the south, Anatolia. To the north, the Caucasus Mountains, jagged, unforgiving, a natural fortress. Between these giants, Georgia has learned to survive through adaptation, not strength. Its valleys are fertile, its trade routes valuable, its churches ancient. For centuries, Georgian kings have paid tribute, made alliances, bent but never broken. But by 1121, Georgia faces extinction. The great Seljuk Empire dominates the region. From their capitals in Isfahan and Baghdad, Seljuk sultans command armies that have humbled Byzantium, conquered Armenia, and reduced proud kingdoms to vassal states. Their military system is refined through generations, heavy cavalry supported by horse archers, siege engineers, and disciplined infantry. They do not merely defeat enemies, they absorb them, converting conquered territories into productive provinces of a vast Islamic empire. The Seljuks believe land belongs to those strong enough to hold it. Tribute is not partnership, it is submission. Those who pay are permitted to exist. Those who refuse are eliminated. Georgia believes differently. King David IV, called the Builder, believes Georgia is not a province waiting to be claimed, but a nation with the right to govern itself. He believes his people's Orthodox Christianity is not a heresy to be corrected, but a faith to be defended. He believes that Georgian valleys belong to Georgian farmers, Georgian churches to Georgian priests, Georgian gold to Georgian treasuries. These beliefs cannot coexist peacefully. For years, David has paid tribute while secretly rebuilding. He has reorganized the army, centralized power, fortified positions. He has studied every Seljuk campaign, every victory, every tactical pattern. He has invited 40,000 Kipchak warriors, nomadic horsemen from the steppes, to settle in Georgia as permanent allies. He has trained his forces not in grand battles, but in mountain warfare, ambush tactics, coordinated strikes. But Sultan Mahmud II grows impatient. Georgian tribute arrives late. Georgian raids harass Turkish border settlements. Georgian defiance becomes intolerable. In 1121, Mahmud assembles an overwhelming force, 250,000 men drawn from across the empire. This is not a punitive raid. This is annihilation. The message is clear. Kneel permanently or disappear. David receives reports of the army's approach. The numbers are staggering, the reputation terrifying. Every conventional military principle says Georgia cannot win. Every advisor counsels negotiation, retreat, or surrender. David chooses war. Sultan Mahmud II rides at the head of an empire's full strength. His commanders are veterans of a dozen campaigns. His cavalry formations stretch for miles, organized in disciplined ranks. Supply trains follow with siege equipment, portable forges, grain stores for months. This is not merely an army, it is a moving city designed to overwhelm any resistance through sheer mass. Mahmud does not expect a battle. He expects a capitulation. Perhaps a skirmish as David's forces flee toward mountain strongholds. Perhaps a siege of Tbilisi, but not a confrontation. Not a pitched battle against an enemy this outnumbered. The Seljuk army marches northwest toward Tbilisi, following the main route through the Trialeti range. The road narrows as it approaches the Didgori plain, compressed between forested hills. For an army this size, it is the only practical passage. The terrain is difficult, steep slopes, dense woods, limited visibility, but not dangerous, just inconvenient. David watches the Seljuk advance from the hills above Didgori. He knows his 40,000 cannot match 250,000 in open battle. He knows Georgian heavy cavalry cannot outlast Seljuk Mamluks. He knows that conventional tactics mean conventional defeat. But David knows something else. Numbers mean nothing if they cannot be deployed. Cavalry is useless if horses cannot maneuver. Discipline fails when commanders cannot communicate. An army becomes a mob when its formation is destroyed, and David knows the Didgori approach. He has studied this ground for years. He understands how the forested slopes create natural choke points. He knows where the road narrows most severely, forcing armies into compressed columns. He knows the exact positions where cavalry charges become impossible, where retreat turns into chaos, where a smaller force with perfect positioning becomes an avalanche. David does not plan to fight the Seljuk army. He plans to trap it, and that quiet decision leads directly to the Battle of Didgori. The Seljuk army enters the Trialeti range with the confidence of inevitable victory. The vanguard moves first, 10,000 cavalry scouting the route ahead. Behind them, the main body advances in segmented columns, heavy cavalry in the center, horse archers on the flanks, infantry protecting the supply trains. The sound is overwhelming, the metallic clink of chainmail, the creak of leather saddles, the rhythmic thunder of 250,000 hooves and boots striking earth. Banners bearing the Sultan's emblems snap in the wind. Officers shout orders that echo through the valleys. As the army approaches Didgori, the terrain tightens. The road narrows. Hills rise on both sides, covered in dense forest. The forest is dark, tangled, nearly impenetrable. The vanguard slows, compressing the columns behind. Movement becomes congested, but this is expected. The terrain is inconvenient, not threatening. The scouts report no enemy activity. The forests are silent, the hills empty. Mahmud's commanders see only logistical difficulty. Navigating the narrows will take time. The army will stretch thin temporarily. But once through, the plain opens again. Then the march to Tbilisi resumes. They do not see the trap closing. Weeks before the Seljuk arrival, David positions his forces with surgical precision. At the highest elevations overlooking the narrowest section of the road, 5,000 Georgian heavy infantry take position. They carry axes, spears, shields reinforced with iron. Their role is containment, to block any attempt by Seljuk forces to escape upward into the hills. Below them, positioned on forested slopes with clear lines of fire, 15,000 archers wait. Half are Georgian, trained since childhood. Half are Kipchak horse archers, masters of rapid-fire shooting. They have spent days studying range markers, clearing firing lanes, preparing retreat paths through the trees, along the valley floor, hidden in forest undergrowth and behind earthworks. 20,000 Georgian and Kipchak cavalry wait. They are divided into strike teams, each assigned specific targets. The Seljuk vanguard, the supply trains, the compressed center where commanders ride. The plan is elegant in its simplicity. Allow the Seljuk army to enter the narrowest section, where their numbers become a liability. Strike first with massed archery to create chaos, then unleash cavalry against a disorganized enemy that cannot maneuver. Use terrain to prevent retreat. Turn an army into a slaughter. David himself positions with the cavalry. He will not command from safety. He will lead the decisive charge. Above them, the defenders wait. They know that once the Seljuk vanguard passes the midpoint, once the army stretches fully into the compressed valley, the signal will come, and then everything will change. August 12th, dawn. The Seljuk vanguard enters the Didgori narrows. Mahmud rides near the center of the column, surrounded by his personal guard. Ahead, the road disappears into forest shadows. Behind, the army extends for miles, a serpent of men and horses winding through the valley. The pace slows further as the narrows constrict movement. The Seljuk officers see the forested slopes. They see the steep hillsides. They see the compressed roadway forcing their formations into tight columns. They see logistical annoyance. They do not see 40,000 warriors waiting in absolute silence. The vanguard pushes deeper. The center compresses. The rear guard continues forward, unaware of what lies ahead. The army is fully committed now, too far in to easily retreat, too compressed to deploy. Only then does the attack begin. The sound comes first. A horn blast echoes from the heights, deep, resonant, unmistakable. Then another. Then a roar from thousands of throats, amplified by the valley walls, into something primal and terrifying. Then the sky darkens. 15,000 arrows launch simultaneously, not scattered shots, but coordinated volleys targeting specific zones. The first wave strikes the vanguard. Horses scream, men collapse. The second wave hits the compressed center. Shafts punch through chainmail, pierce leather, sink into flesh. The third wave targets officers, identifiable by their positions, their armor, their banners. The air fills with the whistle of arrows, the screams of horses, the shouts of men realizing too late that they are not marching through difficult terrain, but into a killing ground. A horse collapses in the vanguard. The rider behind cannot stop. His mount collides, stumbles. Movement halts. The center compresses further. Men try to raise shields, but there is no room to maneuver. They try to identify targets, but the arrows come from everywhere, from above, from the sides, from positions invisible in the forest shadows. The organized Seljuk column begins to fracture. The cavalry charges come next. From the forest undergrowth, Georgian and Kipchak riders explode into the compressed Seljuk formations. They do not charge the front, that is still too strong. They strike the flanks, the supply trains, the points where the column is thinnest and most vulnerable. The Kipchaks move like wolves, circling, striking, withdrawing before Seljuk forces can respond. They target horses first, hamstringing them, creating obstacles, turning cavalry into trapped infantry. They fire arrows at point-blank range into clusters of men, then vanish back into the trees before counterattacks can form. The Georgian heavy cavalry hits harder. They crash into the Seljuk center where officers cluster, where banners fly, where chains of command exist. Their lances punch through armor. Their momentum carries them deep into enemy formations before they wheel and strike again. The Seljuk army tries to respond. Officers shout orders, but their voices are drowned by the chaos. Trumpet signals echo and contradict each other. Units attempt to form defensive positions, but the terrain prevents proper deployment. Cavalry tries to charge uphill toward the archers, but the slopes are too steep, the footing too treacherous. Horses stumble, riders dismount. They become targets. The arrow volleys continue without pause. Georgian archers use the terrain to create overlapping fields of fire. Every exposed position becomes a death zone. Men raise shields only to have arrows strike from different angles. They seek cover behind dead horses, only to be targeted by cavalry charges. Panic spreads like fire through dry grass. The rear guard hears the sounds of battle ahead, but cannot see what is happening. They try to advance, pushing forward, compressing the already chaotic center further. Men are crushed between their own formations. Horses trample the fallen. Some Seljuk units try to flee upward into the forests. They are met by Georgian infantry positioned on the heights. Heavy axes and spears cut them down. Those who penetrate deeper into the woods find themselves lost, separated, hunted by small teams of Kipchak skirmishers who know every trail. Others try to retreat down the valley. But the narrow road is blocked by their own supply trains, by wounded horses, by abandoned equipment. Retreat becomes a stampede. Discipline evaporates. Elite Mamluks abandon formations. Common soldiers throw down weapons and run. In the compressed center, the slaughter intensifies. Men try to surrender, but there is no mechanism for it. No pause in the arrows, no mercy in the cavalry charges. They try to form shield walls, but Georgian infantry descends from the slopes, crashing into defensive positions from above. They try to fight back, but every action requires space, and there is no space. Water turns red. Bodies pile against natural barriers, rocks, trees, each other. The living climb over the dead. Some drown in shallow streams, pulled down by the weight of their armor. Sultan Mahmud realizes the truth. This is not a battle. It is an execution. His massive army, his overwhelming numbers, his elite warriors, all are meaningless in terrain that prevents their deployment. He orders retreat. The command spreads, but there is no organized withdrawal. Only collapse by midday. The Seljuk army is destroyed. Those who can flee do, abandoning weapons, armor, banners, honor. The wealthiest drop their gold. Officers leave behind their command insignias. The proud cavalry of the great Seljuk Empire becomes a panicked mob scrambling back through the valley they entered with such confidence hours before. The Didgori narrows are transformed. The roadway disappears beneath bodies. Broken spears, shattered bows, trampled banners litter the ground. Horses lie dead in formations that tell the story of the chaos, some still harnessed to supply wagons, others collapsed in piles where cavalry charges were stopped cold. The streams run dark for days. Equipment worth fortunes, chainmail, weapons, siege engines, lies abandoned. Scholars will later estimate that 90,000 Seljuk soldiers died at Didgori. Others place the number higher. The Georgian defenders do not pursue. They remain on the heights, watching the broken army flee. Their objective has already been achieved. They fought not to conquer the Seljuk Empire, but to prove that Georgia cannot be erased, that survival is possible, that David's strategy was not madness, but brilliance. As the sun sets, the battlefield falls silent. The Georgian horns sound again, not for attack, but for cessation. The battle that reshaped the region lasted only hours. News of Didgori spreads like shockwaves through the medieval world. In Constantinople, Byzantine scholars document the battle in chronicles, analyzing how such an impossibility occurred. In Baghdad, Seljuk officials receive reports they initially refused to believe. An entire army, the empire's full strength, shattered by a force 1/6 its size. In European monasteries, monks record the battle as divine intervention, proof that faith can overcome any earthly power. For the Seljuk Empire, Didgori is catastrophic. Sultan Mahmud II's authority collapses. The defeat exposes the empire's overextension, the fragility of its massive but unwieldy military system. Regional governors begin acting independently. Subject peoples see that the invincible Seljuks can be defeated. The empire fragments. Within decades, the great Seljuks lose cohesion, eventually falling to Mongol invasions. For Georgia, the outcome is transformative. Didgori does not merely save the kingdom, it establishes it as a regional power. David IV consolidates control over territories that had been contested for generations. He recaptures Tbilisi, making it Georgia's capital. He establishes trade agreements, fortifies borders, and patronizes a cultural renaissance. Georgia enters a golden age that will last a century, but Didgori's impact extends beyond regional politics. It challenges fundamental military assumptions. For centuries, commanders have believed that numerical superiority determines outcomes, that larger armies naturally defeat smaller ones, that conventional formations and disciplined masses are the path to victory. Didgori proves something different. It demonstrates that terrain can be a weapon more powerful than numbers, that preparation can overcome strength, that unconventional tactics, ambush, positioning, psychological warfare can shatter conventional armies, that a smaller force with perfect knowledge of terrain and flawless execution can achieve total victory against overwhelming odds. Military theorists studied Didgori for centuries. The principles David employed, force multiplication through terrain, targeting enemy cohesion rather than individual soldiers, using enemy size against them, become foundational concepts in asymmetric warfare. Today, the Didgori plain looks peaceful. Grass covers the ground where bodies once piled, streams run clear. The forests remain ancient and silent, but the lessons remain vivid. Didgori is remembered not for the spectacle of its violence, but for what it proves: that intelligence defeats brute force, that preparation creates opportunity, and that the courage to fight unconventionally can overcome any conventional power. It proves that survival requires not merely strength, but the wisdom to recognize when the rules themselves must be rewritten. King David IV understood that conventional victory was impossible, so he refused to fight conventionally. He turned his enemy's greatest advantage, their numbers, into their fatal vulnerability. He transformed terrain from obstacle into weapon. He chose not to match power with power, but to create conditions where power could not be effectively applied. The Seljuks brought 250,000 warriors to annihilate a kingdom. Georgia brought 40,000 warriors to a battlefield where 250,000 could not fight. The Battle of Didgori is not the story of a miraculous upset or divine intervention. It is the story of what becomes possible when a leader understands their constraints, masters their environment, and executes a plan so audacious that the enemy cannot comprehend it until defeat is inevitable. And that is why it still matters.